That Raggedy Ann doll was given to a nurse in 1970 by her mother as a Christmas present. But as most girls do, even 28 years old, she would take the doll to bed with her, wrap her arm around, and go to sleep. I do the same thing with a pillow. But then she started taking it to the breakfast nook, where the arms one morning went onto the table. Now, she lived with another nurse, and they shared the expenses of the apartment, which was 4 blocks away from Hartford Hospital.
Right.
At that point, they told the girls about the incident, and one said, "I know a medium." So they held a seance that night. That was the beginning of many seances with this doll. They would come home at night, and the woman had told them, the medium, that there was a spirit of a 6-year-old child in the doll by the name of Annabelle, who had been killed outside of their apartment house in an automobile accident. Well, there was such a child, but God does not allow a child's spirit to go into a doll. This was a devil, a demon, inside the doll, which was impersonating the spirit of a child. Well, they treated it like it was a child. They got extra clothing, and they got different types of bracelets and things for it, just treating it like a little girl. They would take it for rides. But then they started to become frightened when things were happening in the house, sounds, knockings, rappings, whispering. And they said, "Oh, Annabelle must want another seance." So they would hold a seance going deeper down that road of no return. Then they would take the doll and put it on the bedroom, in the bed, and they'd leave it there. They'd come home after midnight, the 2 girls, open up the door, and this doll would be standing there waiting for them. Now that doll can't stand. You can see it has very flimsy legs, but I've seen it stand. Now these are all the diabolical manifestations that we look for. Well, as time went on, one of the fiancés of one of the girls said, "Get rid of the doll, burn it, throw it away." He wanted to get rid of that doll. He fell asleep one Saturday afternoon. And the doll was put right across from him on a couch. And the girls were fooling around saying, "Well, now, Annabelle, you help us to clean up," just like it was a little kid. All of a sudden, he woke up with a start. He was sweating. He said, "My God," he said, "what a nightmare I just had. I dreamt that Annabelle there was strangling me, and he had marks on his throat. Was it psychosomatic?" Well, he walks over to the doll, he picks it up, and looks at it, and throws it right across the room. "You're nothing but a rag doll. You couldn't hurt anyone." With that, 7 slashes appeared on his body, 4 in the chest and 3 on the stomach. The blood came right through his shirt. Now they were all frightened. Things were flying around the room. They called the High Episcopal Canon in Hartford. He called Father Richard Nolan. Father Nolan called us. We went to the house. Exorcism was performed immediately in the home and over the people. I took the doll back to my home here, where it's in the museum now. At one time I had it just sitting in a chair. But a priest came here one day and he said, "Ed, this doll is supposed to be infested by devils." He picks the doll up and he throws it across the room, just like the young man in the house. "God is more powerful than the devil." I said, "Yes, Father, you're right. God is more powerful than the devil, but no priest is, no man." On his way home in a brand new car on Route 84, the car went out of control, almost head on into a tractor-trailer truck. It was demolished, and the priest was almost killed. The last thing he remembered seeing was that doll. A detective, a homicide detective that Lorraine and I were working with, wanted to see the museum. We work on many cases of where children are murdered or whatever. And he came down, he looked all over, and he said, "You know, Ed, of all the things here, I can't take my eyes off that doll." At that time, it was still in a chair. The phone rang. I said, "I'll be right back. Don't touch anything in this room. Everything in here is unholy, unblessed, the opposite of what you would find in a church." Well, I wasn't even up there talking for 10 minutes when I heard him coming up the stairs. He had to come through the passageway into the Halloween room and up into the kitchen. This man was a huge guy. He was about 6'3", 250 pounds, used to seeing grisly sights. He was sweating. He couldn't speak. He was trembling. I thought he was having a heart attack. I told him to sit down and I'd call an ambulance. He said, "No, no, Ed, it isn't that." I said, "Well, what's wrong?" "I don't want to talk about it." That's what he said. "I don't want to talk about it." Sometimes a little macho and cops, you know.
Sure.
And Lorraine walked in, and he looked at Lorraine, and I guess he found it easier to talk to a woman than a man. He said, "I'll tell her about it, but I don't want her to ever talk about it again." Well, she didn't have to. The doll had been in the chair over in one corner of this room. When I came in, the doll was over in another corner on the floor. Everything had been knocked over, like there was a terrible struggle here. There was a terrible struggle. This man had picked that doll up. His aura had mingled with the aura of that doll, and something so terrible occurred that he resigned from the police department 3 months later and moved to California.
Is that right?
A young man came in here one day with a bunch of college students, and after I told him about the doll and many other things, he came over here. I was standing over in the other corner. He started tapping on this glass and said, "I don't believe any of this is a bunch of hooey." He said, "If that doll can do anything, let it do something to me right now. Put a slash on me." I put him out of the building. He was on a motorcycle. 3 hours later, he was dead.
Oh.
The girl that he was with said that he was laughing about the doll when the motorcycle, just like the car, went out of control, hit a tree, and killed him instantly.
Yeah.
The girl was in the hospital for over a year. You do never challenge devils.
Don't mess with the devil, that's for sure, huh?